All right.
Yay. Did you want me to share that video now?
Yes, you can maybe open it already, but let's wait like 2 more minutes. So.
Okay, yeah, no problem. You just tell me when.
I think you just start from the beginning too.
Oh, do I? Sure.
Okay, should we start? What do you think?
Yay! Yay! Yes, let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna play this.
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. Enjoy.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining and welcome. We asked you who we should invite next, and the name that came up most was Ada Sokół. So we are so excited to have her here with us today, together with Pitch Studios. Ada Sokół is a celebrated 3D artist. She has developed a unique visual language that is sensual, photorealistic, and delicate. She has been commissioned by Louis Vuitton, Nike, Kenzo, Alexander Wang, and Rimowa, just to name a few. Whereas Pitch Studios is a well-established design studio that creates new forms of digital experiences. Christie Morgan runs the studio alongside Chris Golden. They are here today, and they are specialists when it comes to 3D spaces, and particularly animation and interaction design. So if you have any questions for Ada, Christie, or Chris, please write them in the comments on YouTube or here in the chat on Zoom for the discussion round later. So that's it from me, and I'm going to give it over to our guests.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having us. We thought we would just share a very quick kind of introduction to what we do, just share some images of our work as well. And then I think Ada is going to share some as well. And then we plan to just jump into a discussion and keep it quite informal. And from there, we'll go from there. So I will share another screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. Cool. So yeah, Pitch Studios, as you said, is a future-focused visual practice where we create stories, images, and experiences Our practice currently explores digital spaces or environments, which is basically a term, if you haven't heard of it before, that sort of describes the interconnected sort of dimensions of like the digital and the physical. So we do this by seeking to sort of contextualize the fragmented world that we experience every day. In short, we understand that we live in a world that's layered or multidimensional, and that's usually through the intervention of modern technology. And we offer new visual perspectives with this context for brands, agencies, and cultural institutions. These are just a few clients that we've worked for. We've worked for companies like the Future Laboratory, Selfridges, Disney recently. We've worked with Nike. We've also worked with cultural organizations like the V&A Museum, Tate, TEDx, for example, where we've created short films, CGI animations, and sort of like still or static imagery. We've worked on web, AR, and VR experiences. We've created visual identities and systems. We've also hosted some workshops. And I guess who we work for is sort of a big factor in the development of our studio, and we always sort of float somewhere between fashion, beauty, futures, and tech as well. I'm just going to show you like a few images of our work. This was a still taken from a project we did with this company called Villager, who makes bags for Nintendo Switches, which was really fun. This was some work that we did for Selfridges and the Future Laboratory, where we were visualizing the future of retail and sort of looking at things from a sustainability perspective. This is also an interactive demo that we've created with the context of we kind of imagined how we could sort of tactilely feel and smell and interact with a perfume through digital mediums. This is also a still from a project we did with Reebok last year for Melbourne Fashion Week, where we did an installation as well, installation with a photo booth. Sorry. This is some work that we did for Snap or Snapchat, as you might know them. We worked with a product called Spectacles, which is a pair of AR glasses. And yeah, we shot some of these we went to Melbourne in this really interesting place and shot this, and we also created the lens as well. And this is just another still from a project that we did with the Future Laboratory, which was visualizing the future of fashion as well, for a report that they released. And I guess I just wanted to talk really quickly on, I guess, our methodology a little bit as a studio. You know, we have this thing called our toolkit. And so our approach is interdisciplinary, which allows us to harness this multifaceted toolkit using emotional connection, intuition, and empathy that brings ourselves and our audiences towards a more empathetic current and future. And so I guess instead of focusing solely on trends or industry insights to enhance or, you know, influence our work, where of course, like we do use those factors to inform certain elements of the work we create, we do opt for a more emotional approach, placing emphasis on sort of like this gut feeling or sense of attachment to an idea. And when prototyping, if something doesn't feel right, you know, there's a good chance that it's probably not going to be right in the end. And although this intuitive approach is really important to us, we also do like to dive deeper into readings, books, talks, other forms of media that influence our area of research, and does incorporate a level of insights or trends. In 2019, we launched a new initiative called Pitch Portal, which is our in-house creative lab, where we explore in connection, behavior, and communication in digital culture and the digital age. This lab aims for us to have a completely dedicated space for experimental creative projects and research that doesn't sit inside normal commercial contexts. Through Pitch Portal, we've produced short films, events, workshops, and even a social experiment, all framed through understanding ourselves through digital culture and that lens. A little bit more about our methodology. You know, our studio is reflexive, expanding and contracting between disciplines, ideas, and mediums. This allows our work to adapt to sort of any given situation, which is obviously very helpful in this current moment. And we often seek to collaborate with external designers, artists, and thinkers with diverse perspectives that may challenge our own. The elasticity of our medium also allows us to design and visualize experiences in ways that we think or thought are unexpected. It forces us to look beyond the bounds of a skill set and experiment with various possible outcomes, where we can look at building multi-layered experiences, for example, in mixed reality. We relish in the experimentation and playfulness of no truly fixed medium and adapt various or new tools when we prototype. We also, whenever possible, engage in generative projects that collaborate with our audience, sitting outside the context of client-facing work. So this makes way for that expanding and contracting notion that you see seeping into our process as a studio. And I guess very early on in the development of our practice, we understood that our lived experiences and creativity are often influenced by a myriad of external factors. Online and offline, we are oversaturated with content, a never-ending brain dump of cultural and stylistic references that ultimately ends up infused into our practice, even if it is sometimes unconscious. We're aware of this becoming in the industry climate, and we have embraced the act of regenerative remix, taking the idea, the tool, the format, and reappropriating it, often by combining it with other ideas, tools, and formats. So essentially, this means that we're not limited to the outcome of our projects. We make way for alternative manifestations. This means projects can be experienced through websites, animations, installations, workshops, images, the list goes on. And this really holds value in being adaptive and adds a layer of flexibility to our practice. You want to jump in? Okay, cool. Speaking of layers, from a thematic perspective, we like to use this idea of understanding layers of reality, exploring both physical and digital dimensions and sort of our impact across these realities. In the real world, we experience life through the URL and the IRL. This existence is obviously fragmented, yet both spaces are deeply interconnected. So it's this gray area that we like to sit between. We might ask ourselves, what does a visual experience feel like if it sits between these two spaces? And when we say feel, we mean look, feel, sound. And sometimes we would like to try and imagine what it feels like, what it tastes like, what it smells like. There's a tactility to that. And finally, within our work, we want a healthy dose of optimism with sort of a safeguard of realism. That's why you'll see a lot of our work having visual elements rooted in reality, things like landscapes, natural elements, organic features, but adding a layer of subversion or surrealism through the color, the sounds, and materials. We liked our work to feel as tactile and sensory as possible, questioning what it actually means to see or touch or hear these experiences. So yeah, that's our introduction. I'll leave it to Ada now.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay. I'm not as well prepared for this as you. I'm really sorry for this. But what I can share, it's obviously my website that is pretty current. So I'm Ada Sokół, and I'm an artist and 3D designer so far. Here are a few of my favorite projects. So mix of the personal and mix of the commissions that I like the most. In many ways, this was like developing 3D nature, Gentle Monster that I still feel was one of my favorite commissions ever. This is the personal project that became like super important for me, just because we've been mixing the digital and the real realms. You can as well have the jewelry that we all designed, but you also can just look on beautiful digitally made images. Nike campaign been extremely special for me just because it was made through by whole female team, and also I guess that was the biggest commission that I ever had, and it was printed around the whole world. What was the most special thing about this that I saw this printed on my birthday, on my 25th birthday, when I've been living in Paris just by a coincidence. So it was also really special for me. And that was the project with the Serpentine was the first commission from big art institution. And also I had a lot of freedom what can be created. So my love to the nature been here extremely important. And other things that I can share. So here is the list of almost all the projects that I've been working on. Not everything, I have a lot that haven't been shared, but here are the things that are the most important ones. So if anyone is interested in something more, there are a lot of details and a lot of text to read about what I'm doing or about the projects itself. And I highly encourage anyone to just read and be on this website. From my side, like everything is there. And if you will have any more questions, please just ask afterwards.
Your website is so beautiful, Ada. It's
Thank you.
really a piece of art in itself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I guess we have some questions to kind of open up the floor. As we said, we wanted to keep it sort of semi-informal. We want it really to feel like a conversation. Yeah. So we've both prepared questions and we're all just going to talk about them. Do you want to start with the first one?
Yes. So my first question to you, just because we will be talking today about the post-pandemic idyllic as well, is how do you think that we will reconnect with each other and how our interactions with others and designers and creatives and just like with the friends will change? And will we seek for like very extensive social interactions? And what was the biggest change in that terms for you during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's obviously a really important question because we've obviously had to adapt so much into this new place and this space of like connection and intimacy and just like a completely different way than we're used to. And we were talking about this before, and we were also having a discussion earlier today about this. And I think something that we really have noticed over the past year is we've been seeking these genuine connections far more than we ever have. So when I say genuine, I mean the sense that you kind of hold people a bit closer to your heart in a way more personal. Yeah. And, you know, perhaps beforehand, we might have taken any kind of relationship for granted, whether that be work, friends, family, partners. But I think moving forward, we've kind of now been sort of like, okay, who are the most important people that I need to surround myself with? And how do I make those moves? So it's kind of like, from what we've experienced, it's just like everyone's been putting more emphasis into the people that they want to spend more time with. And actually, by doing so, you know, we're creating deeper connections. So in a way, we might feel quite disconnected through the fact that we can't see each other face to face, but we still feel connected in other ways. And obviously, you know, the internet is something that is possible to do that through. So yeah, it's kind of been an interesting one for us as well, because we moved countries sort of in the middle of all of this. We were based in Melbourne, Australia, for the past 3 or 4 years beforehand. And, you know, we had grand plans to move our studio to London. We're here now, obviously, but at the time it was really scary, and it was like, okay, we're in this new place. How do we meet people? We don't even know, because there is no...
a lot of people left. Yeah.
A lot of people left, yeah. So there's that. You know, we had a sort of a small group of friends from home that were living here, and they all went back home. So yeah, we were kind of like, how do we meet people? And one of the ways is to do that is, you know, through Instagram, which we've been doing for years, but you kind of like place a little bit more. Like that's how Ada and I, we met, you know.
Yeah, this is how we met.
We met in person, but also on Instagram.
First on the Instagram, then in the real life.
That's how,
yeah.
Which one comes first? So yeah, I mean, you just have to do what you have to do. And, you know, we're human, we're craving connection. We need that. It's important. We're thankful that we can be in the same room right now. So yeah, what about yourself, Ada?
I think that I started to seek for the closest connections with people that I have. So I got back to Poland from Paris during the pandemic, just because I wanted to be with my family. And for last, oh my God, almost 10 years, I've been living like in different cities out of like, I've been in Warsaw, I've been in London, I've been for quite short time, but in Berlin. I also been living in Paris for 3 years. And during the pandemic, I started to miss like the closest people that I have so much, just because I felt scared, to be true, of everything that's been going on in the world, that I just wanted to feel safe somehow, if you know what I mean. So this definitely changed for me, but right now, I think that what I'm missing is just meeting new people, like also in real life. But it started to be so hard to just naturally meet people, which before I would never thought about this, because I've been meeting so many people like during the exhibitions, or I don't know, during the events like we did during the Us by Night. And I miss this so much, and I would never say, like, I would never imagine that it will happen, that it will be some kind of problem to meet new people. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's like overwhelming too when you do meet more than 4 people.
When you, for whatever reason, you know, we're allowed to meet up in groups. So it's like, oh God, this is like,
you're always meeting more than one
people.
person.
Yeah, we're not quite at like going to events and things really. So when we get to that point, it'd probably be quite overwhelming. But I think maybe that's a good segue into the next question, which is about homes and how, you know, our homes have changed, and I guess how we will design our personal spaces in the future, kind of knowing that things like a pandemic can occur, and what it means for our spaces to be kind of like intervened a little bit. We weren't prepared for it. You know, an interesting example is we were working from home. We had just moved to a new country, and I didn't own a desk because I was going to get a studio. We were going to get a studio. Of course, that's what we do. And so I was like, great, I'll go online. I'll buy, you know, just something easy, and everything was sold out. You know, I couldn't buy a desk or a chair. They were completely sold out. And so you have to kind of make do. But that's like, I guess, maybe one example of how our spaces have changed. You know, a lot of us have desks in the living room now.
Yes, like I think that there will be, after the pandemic, there will be some kind of like also hybrid system of working. So whenever you will want to, you will be able to go to the studio or to like your office, but still we will have like multiple places to work in home that are comfortable. I'm not saying about like working from bed, but just like having separate space that it's comfortable for working and that you can focus in for the work. And so this is like my prediction, that our homes will be much more comfortable in terms of also working. I'm not saying that everyone right now will be working from home, but still I guess we all will have some kind of like option for comfortable working from home.
Yeah, we were talking about sort of separating the work-life kind of, I guess, work-life balance in general is really important to us.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to put time and energy into work, obviously, but you also have to put time and energy into just things outside that. And if you don't have the option to kind of separate your workspace from your living space, it can be really challenging, and people can get very overwhelmed or claustrophobic, and it's invading these like very safe, intimate spaces.
Yes, 100% agreed. And this is something that we've been talking about like before. When I've been living in Paris, I haven't got my studio. So when the lockdown started and I've been living, eating, and generally having everything in one space, it was horrible. Right now, right now I have like a really big flat, and I have like separate space for everything, and for work, and for cooking, and for sleeping, and for even reading, which is so comfortable. But like before, when I've been living in like very small space, it was horrible. So I guess our flats will be designed in this way that we can have this kind of like separation between, and we will know when we are working and when we have like our life to keep the balance.
An actual different room, or if that is a partition of some kind, some sort of dividing system. It makes me think a lot about like if you're living in New York and flats or apartments are just small, and everything's kind of, you've probably seen this where you go through like an architectural kind of breakdown, and the bed folds out and the desk comes out and everything goes away. So at some point it can still feel like a home, and you don't get tempted by like working on the bed or whatever, which is very tempting, I must admit. But it's a slow decline when you start working on the bed.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question to you is, will we go back to the traveling as we know it? And do you plan to reconnect with the nature after all lockdowns, or are you planning to spend much more time in big cities and just enjoying the social and city life?
Travel is
I think the nature thing is we've definitely been doing a lot of that, a lot of like hikes and going for like walks and stuff, so that's been like huge.
We also I'm sure it's different in different countries, but in the UK currently they have this list of travel, so you can go to certain countries or you can't go to certain countries, and they've sort of whittled that down a lot. And particularly today, there was an announcement where Portugal has been taken off that list, which everyone was excited for. And they have a list of like, you can go to all these countries, but then a lot of those countries don't accept people from the UK. So there's barriers, obviously if you're doing it for work, it's a different story. But I think travel is not as we know it. Obviously, flights have, gone down dramatically. There's not as many planes in the sky, literally in general. So we can all imagine virtual experiences in some way, becoming part of that. You know, I think most of us look for some level of escapism on that when we're going on holiday. It's a chance for us to have new experiences. It's a chance for us to meet new people, to see places we've never been to. So yeah, that's like, it's extremely important. And I think something that we've noticed, you know, and a lot of people have mentioned it, like, you know, we've gone on hikes and walks and things like that, and just really appreciating the place that you're living in. And we were saying as well earlier that you kind of get this different perspective of London. Like, I think a lot of people think of London, for example, as this big sort of urban sprawl. It's a city, you know, but we've had to make do with what we've got. So we're seeing people in parks. We've been to like lakes and forests, and we're just really, it's just a natural kind of occurrence, but we have had to connect with nature a lot more than we ever did, which we love. And it really, I think, enriches our lives personally, but also, you know, professionally. A lot of what we do is environmental, and so we could reimagine those spaces that we go to every day in sort of this surreal environment.
Yes, 100% agreed. I think that we'll much more appreciate the local traveling. So wherever you are, like, just like during the pandemic, like for example, as a Polish right now, I'm not allowed to go to England just because of the Brexit and just because of the visa, and in general, like, before my second vaccine shot, I won't be able to travel, but like it's next week, so I will finally be able to go abroad. But still, I don't think that many people would just jump like into the traveling. And also, like, from my perspective, so many people started to like be much more into the environmental things during the pandemic, and appreciating the local, and shopping, and just like also traveling, that people will be kind of scared of going like really far away, also just because of the sustainability and the environmental impact and everything like this. So maybe there will be some kind of like green fuels very soon, and we'll be able to like travel sustainably. But still, I feel that even if we'll be traveling, it will be for sure much less.
Yeah. And that's kind of a good step forward regardless.
Yes. Yes. I'm really hoping for this, because I don't know how about you, but during the first lockdown, when I've been in Paris, after like few weeks without cars, because the city was almost empty, like the sky was so clear that I could see like through, you know, the whole city, which was crazy because before it never happened. But it, like, the sky and the air cleaned out so much, it was almost crazy. Yeah,
I had heard that air pollution has gone down a lot dramatically. So
yes,
I mean, yeah, obviously there's been a lot of horrible things that have happened. A lot of people have been you know, had horrible experiences with this, but at the same time you can see some of the benefits, and it also allows us to kind of examine and question the old ways and how these big institutional kind of elements of our lives have been in place for a long time. And it's crazy, but it's taken a pandemic to do that, to share and show us that our consumption habits, in whatever form that is, has been quite harmful to the planet.
Yes. So, okay, like, next question. There was big shifts in terms of the digitalization of many parts of our lives, but also the pandemic changed how we perceive art or digital art. What do you think about the NTF boom?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're kind of in two different minds about it. You know, NFTs provide some level of excitement because it's a new way of exploring digital art and the new way of us being able to connect with people who genuinely quite enjoy us and like what we do. It's created a community, I think, which has its benefits and its cons. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I think my kind of thoughts on it are that we should sort of be cautious of the new economy. I think it can provide great things. I think that there's a lot of space for young artists to make waves in whatever form that is. But I also think that we need to be careful with those spaces and ensure that it is actually benefiting our communities. We've seen a lot of advancement in blockchain technology, and this is a new step forward. So that's exciting. The technology itself and what it can provide for us as digital creators is really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be like a big part of like Web 3.0. It's just like as it evolves into like a new thing. Like I think it'll be more like integrated in like social media or like games or like
experiences in general.
Yeah. Versus just like buying NFTs. So
yeah, versus this sort of like very sort of transactional relationship that it is currently in its stage. You know, if we were to kind of examine it in its sort of, if we were to kind of say how old is it in real life, it would be, you know, a newborn baby. So I think it's if you wanted to compare it, you know, the internet is only a teenager. So I think one thing that I was going to say was it has given a lot of people agency to start making digital art. So maybe you're a 2D illustrator and it doesn't have to be 3D. So it can be 2D as well, of course. Yeah. Anything can be minted, but it has given a lot of people agency to start creating in new ways and start using different technologies. And it's allowing people to be a bit more literate with cryptocurrency, which, you know, I think ultimately is going to be a big shift in the world. So, yeah, we've seen some really great work coming out of that, and that's kind of exciting too.
Yeah, agree.
What are your thoughts?
At the beginning, I wasn't trusting like all of this, like to be true. Like when somebody been saying to me last year, like about the NFTs, I was like, okay. But then it started to grow so fast. So for me, for example, it's really nice way for artists to try to make living out of their own personal works without like any dependencies of, I don't know, for example, clients or big institutions, which is like amazing. Like it's really amazing because there are like so many talented people that cannot afford like just living out of what they are doing, and they deserve that. So there is this very nice side of NFTs. From the other side, like I cannot look on memes that are that are sold for like thousands, and this is something that is so horrible for me. Like, or the picture of Mona Lisa.
Right.
You know, it's not something that is pushing the society forward. Like, let's just face it. It's not. So there is also like this side that I don't like about the NFTs.
Yeah.
But also the thing that I'm always saying about like it's environmentalism and also sustainability. So right now, like for example, Ethereum will be more sustainable, but still it's not right now, and it wasn't for such a long time that it's almost scary. And all the cryptocurrencies, okay, not all, because right now there are a lot of green ones, but like before it was just horrible in terms of the impact on our planet. So
we agree. I think wholeheartedly, I think if you're going to, it's just going to happen, but new industries and economies are going to be created from this. And so ultimately it's in our best interest for everyone to start with a conscious and sustainable way. Therefore, later down the track, we don't have what we had, I guess, with the Industrial Revolution, which is all of these things that we've created are really bad for the environment.
We're still burning coal.
We're still burning it. So
Yeah.
I think we can start having conversations about, obviously this tool is going to be really important. How can we do it in a way that actually benefits people?
And I think it will.
The planet. Yeah.
Yes.
So, intersectional, if you can.
Okay, so next question is a little bit less serious. Do you think that the music culture, clubbing, festivals, and all of this will get back to normal?
Yeah, I think, what do you say, 2 years even?
Yeah, I think we've still got some way. It depends where you live, but I think from what I've experienced and what we've seen here and most of the Western world is that they are kind of the last things to be opened, because it kind of encourages a lot of crowds, lots of people,
disgusting,
people drinking, obviously. So we lose sort of like certain inhibitions and things like that. So obviously, but I think there's an argument to that. I think that they hold a lot of cultural value in like everyday life, and it's really, really important. Music is obviously like really important to us as a studio. So it has some time, and that's just something that I think is a very ingrained thing that I think a lot of like conservative governments aren't interested in, like young people going to festivals, for example. But at the same time, like I think we've seen a lot of like online festivals, like Zoom club nights, even interactive club nights and things like that, which I think is great. I think we've all needed that. But again, it doesn't compare to the real thing unless you've got like the most insane sound system in your house. So I think it's I think we have to wait a little bit longer, but I think it definitely has impacted the way that you experience music, like on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
You're using digital platforms more and more. But it is unfortunate to people, musicians or talent that perform really amazingly in live situations. So we're hoping that it goes back to normal at some level. It could be really sad if it didn't.
Yes, agree. Still, as I said, we finished the lockdown 2 weeks ago, and we went to the club for a few hours last Friday, and people are scared even to go to. So it was like half empty. So this is the first thing. But still, Poland, where I'm currently in, just have this kind of huge club culture. So it was unavoidable. Still during the pandemic, there've been like huge underground parties. I've never been on this, and I was scared just because I heard so many stories about like police coming and like all people going to jail. But still, I'm used to that. So we've been trying to do like parties at my home with my friends or anything, but you don't experience the same thing. And for me, like Zoom parties are like, this is not it. Like I won't be dancing to the screen, like it's,
there's always a little bit of
I can't.
It's like some anxiety.
Because you want to be safe. It's just like weird dichotomy that we're towing the line with constantly. Is like, can we
be safe but have fun?
Yeah, and it's like, how do you do both? We're not really sure, but we're all just, obviously we're all trying our hardest, and we don't want anyone to be severely impacted by that. But the music industry is just so crucial to like culture in any city. It's just it has to go back to some normality, or we'll see, unfortunately, a lot of people not being able to survive, which is really sad. So We're optimistic, you know. We've been to a few things now in London that have opened, and yeah, it's regulated and it's done in the right way, but it's still fun. So we just have to get used to, like,
not as fun.
Not as fun. You have to get used to sitting on a seat and dancing.
Terrible.
But okay, next question. What have we got? What is the biggest positive change for you personally and during the pandemic? Wait, no, is that it? Yeah, during the pandemic that will probably stay the same after it ends.
So for me, for sure, it was like much more personal, and yes, I started to much more appreciate like close people that I have. Like this is 100%. But as I'm saying, this is something personal, not in terms of the work. In terms of work, I learned through really hard way that I need to be happy to create amazing things, and there is no other way. So, and that creativity needs some kind of boost of excitement, let's say it like this. Yes, so this is something that probably will stay with me forever, that I will never ever leave close people to me, and I will always appreciate them. And in terms of the work, is just that you need to take care of yourself to create amazing works.
That's
yes. And how about you?
No, completely. I think one thing that we both have just kind of adapted to is, like, you know, working to live or living to work. You know, that kind of.
But being self-employed, you know, is it's, you know, it's a learning curve of getting the balance.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we definitely were like, you need to chill, like just not work all the time.
And I guess, you know, when we check in with each other, we touch on how are we feeling today, you know, how is everything. We try to use our, like, intuition and our gut as much as possible when we design, but it's also really important when we are creating a culture within our studio, is like, if you're unhappy and you're not feeling it, both of us think that it's really important to take a break. And, you know, we have the luxury of being able to do this because we work for ourselves and we make up our own rules. As long as, you know, deadlines are met and clients are happy and we can do what we love. But yeah, it's about, we completely shifted our mentality because, you know, we care so much about what we do. We love what we do, and that's why we do it. But it gets to a point where it becomes obsessive, and it's not helpful for anyone on, like, a mental level, on a physical level. You know, we sacrifice certain things. We might sacrifice our social life sometimes. And, you know, we don't imagine going back to the way that we were working, which was, a bit too much.
Just like a lot.
Yes.
Grinding them out.
100%. Yes. Like, I agree.
Contributes to, sorry, just one more thing. I think that also contributes to the kind of relationship that you have with, like, the people you work with too. So it's all about respecting boundaries. And if we can set boundaries for ourselves, that means we can set boundaries for the people we work with. So that's really important.
Yes, I agree 100%. And also, I guess, like, everything slowed down during the pandemic. I don't know if you agree with me, but, like, I'm saying about and consumerism and the traveling and, like, also work life. And we started to appreciate that, just because I think, like, at some point, like, before, there'll be, like, this big society trap that we all the time need to do something, like, do something, whatever that was, like, reaching another goal in work, reaching another country in terms of the traveling, or like reaching something. And this race, like, stopped or, like, slowed down. And I don't know anyone who wasn't enjoying that at the end. Like, I really, whenever I'm just talking with the close people, even if they love their works, it's just they started to appreciate, I don't know, like going on a walk or just reading a book that is like completely disconnected with their work. So yeah.
One thing that, like, you know, I think we would all hate is that we get to a nice old age and we've achieved all these things and we've had all these amazing work experiences and done what we wanted to do, but we don't have anything else to show and we don't have any other memories. And I don't think that's something that any of us want. We want to live a rich life, and that is a really steady balance of all the things that make life really rich. So absolutely, it's about making sure that you make the time for that balance too. And absolutely, we've slowed down.
It's kind of hard to get into that because you've been doing the grind one way, and so it's like a bit of an addiction, you know. You're kind of you're like, all right, I need to like stop because I know where that's gonna lead.
I know what it looks like.
I know what it looks like. So
and you know, that's just something that we've been taught mostly through capitalism and the attention economy. I mean, that's just like, that's the factor of life, is like, this is what we live in. We are told that we want more things all the time, so therefore we want more things all the time. But it's about sort of unlearning that and sort of reverting back to like, can I be content and happy with what I have currently? You know?
Yes.
And there's always room for growth, but can we do that in a way that's sustainable for our mental health as well?
Yes. Work is one, and also you mentioned just like attention culture, but like bite culture. This is like another like important thing, and especially during the pandemic when like so much of our parts of life switched to the digital, I saw like so many like mental breakdowns just because of this, which was like, this is horrible. And I have like very different background than most of the people that I'm working with. And for example, I don't know, like my grandfather being on the Second World War, and he survived like without a parents, and he haven't got food for like so much time, and he's happy right now just because he can get up, do himself like, you know, a breakfast and just live. And he's just happy with this. And when you think in this way that you can just live and like have your life, like it's amazing. It's just, you start to appreciate like super small things, and also like have another approach to your work. Because you are like genuinely happy about this and not like angry that something haven't worked out, or like that you haven't or anxious that you haven't reached like another goal that you put on yourself, or like somebody else put on yourself, just because you are human and you live, you got place to live, and I don't know, you have food. So it's
you have to be appreciative of those things. Like, you know, we are all in a place of privilege in some way, and we have to be thankful for that.
We are. Yeah,
absolutely. Last question about post-pandemic. What is our biggest dream for the post-pandemic time? What do we want after all of this? Even though we just talked about like wanting things.
Work-wise, I wish to learn something new. I wish to learn like some kind of like new software, or develop something completely different that I did before. Personally, I'm badly seeking for like new social interactions, let's say it like this, and just meeting people in real life. I miss that the most. And those are very small dreams, but they are mine. So and how about you?
What have you got?
I don't know. I don't think I'm ready for it. Taking it day by day. New interactions for sure. You know. Things to be open. I guess that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, I feel the same way. I think now it's important to continue the unlearning and the reimagining and reshaping, like where we go next. I think it's always important to talk about that and think about your impact on all the different levels of life and like what you contribute to the world. So yeah, I'm going to spend like, I think a lot of time working on our studio and what we create and how that fits, and we're in the process of
we're gonna Unreal. Yeah, we want to learn like Unreal, like the game engine,
real time.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, we want to, like you said, we want to tap into some new software. We want to be more active with our process, but I think we also want to sort of like work on our thesis as a studio and what we stand for, and that's an ever evolving kind of beast, but we are going to put together a project that kind of is the epitome of like everything that we stand for, visually as well as like, you know, from a conceptual perspective. And we want to present that in a few different ways, so you'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, and also when it will be post-pandemic, because I cannot imagine that point. That
it's almost like, what is post-pandemic?
What is post-pandemic?
Meta, but
no more things after this.
Yeah, I mean, we've been post-pandemic ever since like the end of first lockdown, and now we're at the end of second lockdown. There might be a third, you know. So I think everything is post and everything is pre. So yeah, I guess as Chris said, take it day by day, really, sometimes.
Just go with the flow. Like there's no other way to this.
Appreciating the everyday more and more as you can, yeah. We have some other questions that are a little bit more maybe focused on design. What we do, design and work. So our first question is sort of like, what's your method of research and how do you build out concepts based on that research?
So for me, there's no one way. For sure, it depends on the project that I'm working on, just because sometimes I'm working with different creatives. Sometimes it's commission that I cannot have any freedom in. And in terms of my personal projects, it's never one thing that inspires me. I'm trying to read a lot. I'm trying to feed my brain. I'm trying to watch a lot of movies, but this is personal. The most important thing for me, it's in terms of the research, that it's never like bite driven platforms, let's say it like this. So just this is something that it's really distracting me always. So I cannot do research on the platform that I know that there are a lot of other people doing the same time and that are looking on a like bite, not the value that you are trying to bring. So I'm sorry to say that there's just no one way. In terms of commissions, as I'm saying, it's kind of different with my personal projects. It's completely different, and I'm almost never inspired by the same things.
Yeah.
And how about you?
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's, as you said, it's really difficult to not be influenced by the community that we're in, because we love so much of like your work, everyone that we know and like we connect with, and we most of us that are in this industry know each other, either through Instagram or in person, you know. So sometimes it's a group and it'll be like all your friends like referenced in the same slide, and I just think it's so funny.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's a mix of just like reading books and finding videos and links, and a lot of it is digital, but it's not like we sit scrolling on Instagram looking.
Don't scrolling, it's the worst.
To do like a mood board, you know, kind of like set like an atmospheric tone for what we're like trying to achieve.
that can be just photos that I've taken on my phone of like a flower, or it could be a soundscape, or it could be a mix by someone that we like. It could be a book that I've read that has nothing to do with what we do, but it's using like different pieces of that in a way, that is really unique, and it is really hard to define. But at the same time, I think if you have a method and it works, keep using it, you know?
Yes, wherever works for you. But if I may say, it's just like try to get deeper and not copy others. Just like find your interests. So for me, for example, I am completely obsessed with Japanese culture. So like whole December, I've been reading about the yokai and the yurei, which are like demons of Japan, and that was inspiring to me, like at that time. And this knowledge, it's staying for you. So even if you are just trying to inspire yourself, and not necessarily already after you need to make a project, because you never know when your knowledge about something that is interesting for you will be useful, or when you will use it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like we're always like dropping links, and we use Discord a lot, and we have like different channels where we can drop like news, links, resources. It's public facing. We haven't really like invited many people to it, but I think that's something that we want to do at some point, because I think leaning on like a community and being inspired by people in a way that isn't like looking at their portfolio, I think is really nice as well. And exactly, like as you were saying, like researching something that might feel completely disconnected, but if you can take pieces from that and use that through your work, I think that's great. I think what a lot of people coming out of school, there is so much, not necessarily competition, but there are so many talented people out in the world, and we all have platforms to talk about how talented we are now. So it can be really overwhelming. And as I said earlier, you know, this brain dump of like references that we can't ignore those. I think it would be a bit ridiculous to assume that all of our ideas are unique and original. That's not possible, because we have access to so much. But at the same time, I think it's about how you approach it. And we approach things in a very, like we like to feel it out, and we want it to feel sort of sensory or tactile, but also it needs to
get emotive kind of energy.
It needs to tap into this, and that's really hard to define. But a lot of the times the work that we do, we just like it, and that it works. It's sort of intangible in a way, but
Yes. Yes. Okay. Next question. Are there any platforms you prefer to use? Oh, you said a little bit about this, that you are exchanging links, but
we use Arena a lot. We like Arena because it's not like so it's similar to Pinterest in the way that you can find links via images if that's what you want to do. But it's also the interface isn't like easy, and like I like that about it, because you actually have to go out and find what you want to put in there.
Yeah, it's kind of more like SoundCloud, where you like find the song you like, and there are other obscure things like
and that obscurity within the resources, it's not necessarily another image. It could be a link, it could be an article, it could be a sound, it could be a video. And that's something that's really important to our practice, is just having a very transmedia approach. Is like, how can we tell a story or some sort of narrative in a way that isn't just an animation, or it isn't just a still image. It's this whole experience where, you know, it works for clients, it works for commissions, it works for personal projects, it works in so many different ways. It's about using this like full universe that we're creating around the idea. Arena is great in that way. I mean, we both use it quite a lot. We use
Notion. Like way cooler it's really cool. It's like also cool in the design because, like, for example, with the Pinterest or something like this, like I just feel like it's old, and with Arena, it's like really nice looking also.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like Pinterest is like showing you the same thing, or like
versions of
the same version of
yes.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, we use like Notion as well. If anyone's interested in looking into that, it's note taking, project management. It's kind of like a mix between like the Google Suite and Asana and like a few other different project management tools. We don't use it, I guess, in like a traditional, I don't think we use it in a traditional way, but it's kind of like a hub for all of our projects and questions and comments, assigning things to people. And, you know, you can get to a point where you can be too over organized and kind of project manage too much. So we like to kind of use it in a sort of a minimal way. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good tool.
I'm kind of similar. I don't like chats. Like, for example, Slack doesn't work for me completely, and all this kind of tools. From my side, I also use a lot of like color matching tools, just because like when I'm doing my 3Ds, and I'm obsessed with the colors, so, and matching the colors, and all screens are calibrated, and this is something that is like super important for me. So I use Adobe Color. This is the pretty basic one, but you have also a lot of like applications to match the Pantone to your photos, or like to, if you see in real life some kind of like
I think Pantone
something.
Cool.
So yes, this is from me in terms of my works. Okay, how did you define what tools to use as an artist?
I guess that's a good segue into that. You know, we like to keep the tools flexible. So, you know, it kind of taps into the whole like no fixed medium. And obviously we stick to a certain sort of realm where we use like 3D for sort of like the foundation of everything. So we use Cinema 4D, we render with Octane, and then we use other platforms. Like I said, we're getting into real times. So we're like working with Unreal. We've worked a little bit in Unity,
And
Lens Studio and Spark AR for the AR platforms, just because they're accessible to everyone. We haven't actually built anything like from scratch with AR, but we definitely like would love to do that at some point. And we've done some stuff as well in web, which we've used like WebGL and things like that. But we're a small team. We don't do everything ourselves. We usually bring in people that have really unique skills that we can work with. So that's kind of like how we get around the tools. I think we were talking about like AR and any sort of like mixed reality, I guess, that it can be used in this like sort of emotional and personal way, because you are viewing it, you know, on your own personal phone with your face on it. So we like being able to kind of like intervene in those experiences in your kind of personal spaces in a way that's like utopic and optimistic and whatever. And, you know, with real time, it's something that we are getting more into. We're definitely not experts, but we love the idea of it being really adaptive and being able to make changes to things in real time and not have to worry about how long something's going to take to render, which is, you know, as we know out of the beta.
I know, and how much you need to pay for the render farm or like everything like this. Yeah, I know. I know from Autopsy. Yeah.
So what about yourself? You know, obviously we work sort of in similar mediums, but.
Yes. There is big difference. I'm working with Blender, and like I'm not also making like so far real time, which is something that I wish to learn, but still like few years ago when I've been just starting doing 3D, like the quality of real time for like personal computer was like so bad that I didn't want it to go into this direction, just because I'm obsessed with the details. So I needed like some kind of like high quality and really high poly models to achieve the, let's say, the effect that I wanted. And I also don't want to limit myself to one tool. I'm not saying that I will still stay with Blender forever. I also, as you did, lens for the spectacles from Snapchat. And augmented reality is starting to be so good right now that I feel like I really wish to develop myself into this direction much more before. And right now it's like pretty common thing to do. And 3D, it's fine, but as you are saying, how much it will render, how much it will the render farm will cost. With me, it's also, where do you get the models from? And if you have a client who will help you with the models, because at the beginning I've been doing everything on my own, and right now I like from pretty long time I'm just always hiring others to help me with the modeling or like 3D scanning. But it's a lot. It's really a lot. So and I never did like CG, like all my works that you can see. I'm not saying like about the augmented reality ones, but all like the 3D works are like 100% 3D, no retouching, not photography. Like they're all 100% 3D. So
it's interesting that you say that about about like the whole like rendering thing. It's just, obviously we love the details it can achieve, and I think with our work, you know, your work I feel is very realistic, in even if the being that you're designing isn't realistic in itself, you know, it's like this bug that but you have this sort of this kind of feeling of realism, whereas I feel like we sit we're quite comfortable in it feeling not realistic, digital. So when we want to like work more in real time, for us it feels like it can work at its current stage. Obviously it will get better over time, but it's like that level of fidelity that we have come to, we're happy with, but there's always room to improve. And you know, we do look at the stuff that's hyper realistic and we're like, ooh, that looks really beautiful, but at the same time, like I think we're pretty comfortable in our chosen style, which actually leads to the next question, which is, how do you define your style? I don't know if you want to
image maker,
any words to define it.
So at the beginning, when I've been starting, I just wanted to do something like, let's say, beautiful, and how cliche it doesn't sound, like that was all, and that still is my goal. But in terms of the visual language that I'm using, and this is why I also chosen like 3D, just because there is a realism that I can achieve, but I can show like super fantastical things, or like fantasy things, or things that I can imagine. And also some, like, I would say that I want to have something that is looking uncanny, so almost real but not real at all, at the same time, something between the reality and something between the fantasy. And this makes sense to me totally. So I really hope that this is visible in my works, but this is something that I always wanted to achieve. And I don't mind what kind of tools I'm using. There needs to be something that is balancing the reality with something that is uncanny, because with the 3D, for example, why to copy the word? What for? Like, can I not go and do a picture of the nature if I want to do perfect nature in 3D? It doesn't make any sense for me. So yes, I always been looking on some kind of like contradictions in terms of visual style. So looking for some kind of, as I'm saying, like real and fantasy, mechanical and natural, beautiful and ugly. I don't know. It's just something that I always been searching for.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes. How about you?
Our style. What did we say? Rooted in reality, but very surreal.
Yes.
I think we kind of do like a sprinkling of surrealism, but at the same time, I'm like, I think we would agree with you. Those contradictions between what is real and what is fantasy. I think a lot of what we want to evoke is really beautiful, but in a way that might not be typically beautiful. So we try to use things like landscapes and environments that kind of remind us or create a familiarity around real life, but still have that level of fantasy where we can like kind of admire it in a way. So
okay, so next question is, how do you know when something feels aligned aesthetically? About just something that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's obviously really hard to define. It just is sometimes, and that obviously depends on commissions, client projects, and then personal projects. Personal projects, we have all of the scope and the understanding of what we want to create, but when you're defined in certain constraints, there are certain limitations, and there are things you can't do and things you can do. So I think as long as I think it just reverts back to like the whole surrealist but not surreal kind of thing. As long as it feels like it could be real but it's not quite real, I think that's how.
Yes, uncanny.
Uncanny, exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't work with avatars really, but if we were to do that, I don't know what that would look like. Probably you'd get kind of freaked out a little bit, but yeah.
Yes.
And you?
I just know. I'm sorry to say that. Like, there is no other, like, whenever I've been drawing, and I've been drawing since I was like a child, like really from very early days of my life. And then I've been doing like a lot of different stuff, from like fashion to architecture. Like, I even been in architectural high school. So whenever we've been drawing, like others been like building landscapes, and I've been sitting and drawing, the details of the doors in one building. And I always been obsessed with the details. So whatever I've been doing, this is something that I need to feel that the detail quality is enough for me. And you just know. I'm sorry to say that. Like, I don't have any recipe or anything like that I can say as an advice. You just need to feel this. And if you don't, like, just move on and do something new that you will be happy with.
Yeah. It's like, if you're unhappy with it, move on and then maybe come back to it, and it always work out at some level. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We just wanted to make a note that our studio closes in 10 minutes. So if you have questions, like, we can try and do that as well. I'm really sorry so we're about to close. We don't have 24-hour access, unfortunately. But also, if Ada, you wanted to stay on and continue answering questions, like, we're happy with that. So yeah.
Thank you so much for these amazing questions you already asked. We have some prepared too, but we're feeling like your questions were so great already. We can't compete with that. But maybe somebody on YouTube or on Zoom has a question that they want to be answered.
Send us our way.
Yeah. Don't be afraid.
I feel like this is always when it becomes silent.
Or from our team, should like somebody like our 5 questions should just start?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like Mylin or Lala, what do you think?
So I was wondering, Christie and Chris, you keep your team very small, and then you apparently engage freelancers when you need it. What are the pros and cons of this group concept for you?
There's not many cons, to be honest. I think that we've worked out a system that works really well. I guess the only con would be like availability of people can change, and obviously people have other obligations and they're not like employed by us. So we obviously don't think that as a bad thing. It's just more like when we're looking for a specific person with a skill that we want to build something really amazing, we have these crazy ideas. And they're not available, then it's like, okay, we need to find someone else that can do that. But we try to stick with working with the same people regularly, just because we have such a good workflow.
Or if we have an idea, we make sure that like we can achieve like a version of it. So if worst case scenario, like we can't find the people we're looking for, we can like work out a solution. So, but it's a lot of like art direction, and then finding the right people.
Yeah, and that does take time, finding those people. You might do a project together and you're like, okay, that wasn't really exactly what we both wanted, but I think it's really important to collaborate with people outside of your internal space. You just gain perspectives on things that you might not be able to, and generally, because they are working on other projects and with other people, they can bring in different types of ideas and things, and we want to keep it collaborative that way. That's really important, that they also, as much as we are kind of leading the show, they do get a lot of input conceptually and like visually. It's really important.
So that means that you that the freelancers are engaged from a very like early state of the project. If you say it's also about process and concept of a design.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to involve whoever we're working with as early as possible. And sometimes, with certain client projects, they do have lots of restrictions and limitations. So it is sometimes a matter of like, we just need to get this achieved, and can you help us do that? I think the most fulfilling times that we've worked with other people is when they're personal projects, and we are able to, all of us, kind of dictate where it goes and experiment and play.
Cool, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So maybe one question to Ada, and then we can wrap up so you can get out your building. Ada, I have the impression that your career is completely going through the roof right now, and I was wondering if you can tell us more about how you think you achieved that level, and is there something that you owe that success to? Like, how did this happen?
How everything happened? This will be a problematic question because I don't know. It just happened. To be true, like I don't have any studies, any design studies or anything like this. My background is very design focused just because of my parents. Both of my parents are architects, but my father being the first 3D designer in 90s in Poland. So after my try with the fashion studies in Poland, I've been freelancing a lot in terms of like 2D and doing a lot of illustrations and drawing. And I realized that I have like 3D language from my childhood, just because my father been all the time saying about the 3D. And this is how I started to do this. To be true, I've just been posting stuff on Facebook that I even don't have anymore. And people started to reach me out. First big thing was for me the poster for the exhibition in Poland. Then I started to have like my own exhibitions in Beijing. Then I started to do editorials, and then I started to have clients. And this is how all started. And I never planned that. I never finished any studies. And it feels even intimidating for me to say that I'm successful, but the clients list that I have, it was just happening to be true. Like I never planned any of this, and I never dreamed that it will go this way. So yes, that's everything that I can say.
Amazing, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for giving us an insight into your lives and to your creative processes. And Ada, you said that I need to be happy to create amazing work. And so for the end of this night, I'd like to highlight this quote, and let's keep in mind to always make ourselves happy. So thank you guys.
Yes.
Thank you everybody for coming, and see you next week, same day, same time, for another exciting lecture. And we will keep you posted on Instagram.
Great.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.